Well, good morning there. We'll be going live in just a few moments. I hope everyone's having a good January. I hope the return to work after the Christmas period hasn't been too much of a shock for you and that you've not given up on your New Year's resolutions already. Anyway, today's going to be a programming stream as always. We're going to be working on the so-called Yquest program that I've been working on over the last few weeks. And we're going to see if we can make a little bit more progress on that. So it's going to be some simple Z80 programming. Now, of course, if you can't always catch these streams, you don't need to worry too much, because assuming a completed project does occur at the end of this programming attempt, it will become a series in its own right, and I will be eventually porting it to the other Z80 systems like the MSX and hopefully the Game Boy and things. So as I say, the plan is for it to become a fully fledged tutorial series of its own. So as I say, if you're interested in the project but these streams aren't convenient for you, then you'll catch those later on anyway. Now, as always, this stream occurs at the same time every week, but I do also have my Saturday stream, which is a gaming stream. Hopefully we'll be doing some Sega Master System playing tomorrow, so that should be some fun. Anyway, we'll start the stream now because the official time has passed, so over we go, over to the main thing here. There's my window here. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Chibi Akuma's Live. Hello there, Mark. Very kind of you to join me in the chat there. We are now on my new PC. Before I was on a small cheap laptop, which was a little bit underpowered, but we're on the brand new machine, which is a Core i7 and is far more powerful. I can now drive all three monitors. I can have full 30 FPS with hardware encoding. And I'm only using 1.7 CPU utilization, so not going to make much of a difference to today's stream. Hopefully, hopefully nothing will go wrong, but it's certainly a lot more comfortable for me now. I've got more monitors, faster hardware, and I can have all of my windows open. I can have an entire monitor for OBS Studio, an entire monitor for my web browser, things like that. So much nicer setup, and hopefully with streams like tomorrow's stream, the gaming stream, it will be a lot more effective because I can have better settings for all of I can have more cameras, I can have nicer effects on the cameras and things, and not worry about using all the CPU power. So yeah, everything's going quite nicely there. So we're going to be working on Yquest again this morning. It is 5 AM. I'm feeling slightly less tired than usual this morning, which is good. However, my leg apparently feels a different way because I tried to get out of bed this morning and immediately fell over because my leg had fallen asleep, which was a bit of a shock to say the least. But my brain seems to have consumed all the blood my leg should have had because I'm feeling quite awake. Anyway, so what we're going to do today, well, there's a few changes I want to make to start with. So firstly, I want to make a change to the game rules. At the moment, if you hit the side of the walls, if the player hits the side of the walls, the player stops. Now, in the original Yquest game, the player would actually die at that point, but I think the joystick controls are going to be a little bit too difficult, and I think that's going to make the game a bit unpleasant to play. So what I'm going to do, well, firstly, I'm going to reload WinApe because I forgot to plug my joystick in and it has now gone a bit AWOL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the rules, and if you hit the side of the screen, you're going to bounce backwards in the opposite direction. Now, this will make the game arguably slightly easier, but if you've lost control of the player, I think you're going to hit something else pretty soon anyway. So I think that's something I think we want to do. Another thing we need to do is we need to start working on some randomization of the enemies when they appear in the game. So I need to write a random object positioning routine, and then if we manage that, then what I want to do is start programming the collectible items. Now, there's sort of three kinds of object in the game. There's enemies which move, there's these static kind of mines, these spiky things that you can't hit, and then there's also crystals you have to collect, and the crystals are the purpose of the game. You collect all the crystals, you get enough crystals, you progress to the next level. So that's an element we will need to code as well, and obviously it's quite an important one because otherwise what is the actual point of the game? So that's that's kind of my ideal to-do list for today. So that's what we're going to be working on. So let's have a look through my code, and I'm trying to remember how it works, to be honest. There is a risk that I will completely forget what I'm doing, and that has slightly happened today. The way I'm programming this game, I don't look at it during the week. I work on tutorials for the regular series during the week. That's kind of the way I'm doing things here. So there is a slight risk that I will forget what I'm doing and not code good code at all. But unfortunately, that's just the nature of things, I'm afraid. To keep up the I'm currently releasing a new tutorial every 3 days on my main channel, and to keep that up means I have to every 2 days. Did I say 3 days? That's not. I'm releasing 3 tutorials a week. That's a video every 2 days. But to keep that kind of production rate up, it means effectively I have to write a tutorial every 2 days, which means I have to learn something every 2 days. Otherwise, I've got nothing to write tutorials about sometimes. So it effectively means a long project like this that may not produce results is too risky to do during my regular time, because, as I say, this could take me months and it could never produce a game that it works at all, and that would leave me with nothing to make a tutorial on. So So to avoid that, I'm doing this sort of slightly more experimental tutorial as my live streams, but it does mean that that it's not necessarily going to be the most smooth of programming. Maybe sometimes I'll be making mistakes that I wouldn't make if I was working on this 7 days a week, but it just isn't possible, unfortunately, to work on it 7 days a week. So what we're doing here is we've got creating a function called randomize object position here. Let's move the microphone a little bit. The clicking of the keyboard's a little bit loud. I bought this cheap backlit keyboard, one of these RGB ones, and it's perfectly pleasant to use. But I was perfectly happy with my old one, but I wanted a new keyboard. And this one's a lot louder, but if you look at the information online, it says mechanical effect membrane keyboard, and it's like, well, so it's not a mechanical keyboard, but it's just as noisy as one. Not sure that's a good thing, but it's what we've got now. So I'm gonna make do with it. Maybe next time when I'm buying keyboards, I will look for the opposite. Maybe I'll look for mechanical effect mechanical operation membrane sound keyboard. That's what we need. We need a silent keyboard with good keys. But I'm saying no criticism of the keyboard apart from the noisiness of it. But anyway, so let's so we need to go here. We need to do a call to randomize object position, and we need to load. It's this we need. So this is loading in the count of the enemies. It's loading in the source address of the object array, and then we are going to randomize each object one at a time. Like this. There we go. The tabs are too wide in WinApe, unfortunately. It's also quite a shame that WinApe hasn't been updated, really. I did look at the website just the other day, and there's been no new version now. I think there was a beta being distributed to some of the streamers, but there's no sign of anything public, which is a shame. The large fonts on my screen here, I actually had to mess with the executable with a hex editor and modify the commands that were declaring the fonts. It wasn't disassembly as such, but that's what I had to do. That's the only reason we've got big fonts on this version. It's been it's been modified at the binary level, so it's not an option within the default, and I prefer a much smaller tab size than that, and again it's not available, so we just have to unfortunately make do. Oh dear, hang on a minute. My OSD display was minimized. I need to change my Windows 10 settings there. Sorry, my Windows 10 minimized all of my applications when I tried to do an Alt tab there. I need to work out what's going on there. Used to Windows 7, unfortunately. Sorry about that. But yeah, that's my OSD software, and it got minimized, so that we weren't getting the key presses there. Anyway, so we're going to process each in the object array, and we're going to randomize their position using that function we've just written. So if I put some F9 here, and there's 3 errors, that's not good. Me getting distracted by the on-screen keyboard there. Here is 0, that's good. So if we now do call 1200, why is that bottom one not moving? What's going on? What's up with that? It's not right, is it? Okay, let's have a look at that. Let's see why he's not moving. So, what could be the problem here? Object byte size. I am using that, so that's okay. Let's try taking this loop out here. Oh, press the wrong button there. I think actually maybe it's because this BC here might be messing things up a bit. I'm not sure, maybe not. Wouldn't be doing the player position any good, I don't think, but okay, well let's I'll keep pressing F6 because on Win8 the assemble button's F9, and on everything else I use Notepad++ and it's F6. Okay, so it's working okay there. Okay, I know what the problem is. Yeah, it's me being dumb. The problem is I am dumb. Well, we can fix that, or at least work around it. What the problem is, the random seed gives a value 0 to 255. And we need a value that's within the screen boundaries of 128 and 80. So we want a better random number function. Okay, what we'll do is we'll create a function called ranged random, I think. Let's think what registers are we going to be best to use here. When you press escape, it puts a little London Underground symbol for some reason. I don't know what that's all about. Anyway, so WinApe's not been updated for a few years, but I do still say it is the best. So we just have to work around its obscurities sometimes. So I'm just thinking, I want to use something. Something for the range, and I don't know whether to use HL, BC, or DE. I'm not sure. So return a value between D and D. I'm going to use D and D. I don't know whether to use, no, maybe I'll use B and C. I don't know. I don't know which is better. So we're running our random function, and then we're going to compare to B. So, and if it's smaller than B, then it's not acceptable. And if it's not smaller than C, then it's not acceptable as well. So we're saying do random. If it's not smaller than B, then do it again. If it's not smaller than C, do it again. Yeah, that's right, I think. Okay. And our screen is 50 wide, I think. 50 wide. And let's get our amazing Windows 10 calculator up here. The only good thing about Windows 10 is the calculator, which apparently is open source, but is apparently also so confusing, so poorly coded that no one can figure out how to port it, because it's got all kinds of weird bits of like old versions all cobbled together or some nonsense. I did read about it, and they said it was like really weird the way it was programmed. Oh, hello there, Quasar. Very kind of you to join me. I'm not paying attention to the chat when I accidentally minimised everything a moment ago. The chat got closed down. It's very kind of you to join me today. So we're working on this Yquest again, which I do plan, if I can get it finished, to port to the Sam Coupe. So hopefully, well, as with all of the Z80 systems, maybe not the Thai 83. We'll see. See what mood I'm in. C8. I don't know how many people are interested in the Thai 83 calculator. I know it has its fans. It's just feels a bit crazy porting games to a calculator. It just feels a little bit odd. But, it's a system. When I started these tutorials, it's still not moving. Move, damn you. I don't know what to make of that. Oh, I'm using the wrong version. I didn't change to the new version of the program. Do ranged random. There we go. Do ranged random. There we go. So ranged. Did I call it? Ranged random. There we go. There we go. They're both moving away now, so that's good. I mean, we'd really want to initialize the random seed in some way to get this working properly. With something like the current tick that the operating system returns, or just to press any key at the start and, you know, just up a counter before the user presses a key and use that as the seed. But I'm not worried about that, and in a lot of ways it is helpful. In the initial stages of writing a program like this, having it not random means you can test it in the same situation every time. You know, if it's crashing 10 seconds in and you're random, then it might not crash the next time because the same events won't occur. Whereas if it's not really random, it will occur in the same way, and that can help. So there we go. So our enemies are now wiggling around in a sort of random way. Now, what I want to do next is I want to find the code that handles the player. It's this code here, and I want to program this to flip the acceleration. So let's get my cheat sheet out, a bit of paper here, which I do still use. I don't use it as much anymore. I don't do as much Z80 programming as much, but I often load up my cheat sheets on the screen nowadays. But I've got a lot of stuff open on screens. I've got OBS on one screen, and I've got the internet on the other screen, and then my center screen I'm programming on. So a little bit using up all of my screens here. So I think we want to do a neg command. I'm just which we can only do on the accumulator. That's a shame. I was wondering if we could do it on the IX register, but apparently we can't. Apparently we can't do that, so we won't do that. Okay, so this is checking the X boundary, and if we get here, then the X boundary is no good. So we'll do LDA comma X acceleration here. Now it occurs to me, can we do a CPL? I don't think we can. We can't do a CPL of it. I was wondering if we could simulate the neg command with a CPL and an inc of the IX, but we can't. So we can't. So we'll just do it like this then. Load A, negate it, and store it back. So that's flipping a positive move to a negative one. So that will tell the enemy or the player to start moving in the opposite direction they were in the axis that hit the boundary. And this is the y-axis, so we need to do the same here. So here's the y-axis stuff. Very good. And we need to do a call of 1. So now if I hit the bottom here, I do indeed start bouncing back up. Starting to look a bit more like Pong now, but that's exactly what I was after. There we go, that's quite fun. I think we can have some fun. As I say, this is quite it's quite different to the rules of the original game. But I don't think that matters. It's eventually going to be a tutorial. It wasn't a let's try and make the exact same game. It was let's try and make a game that's some fun. As I say, I had a disproportionate amount of fun on the original one, considering the concept was pretty simple. So I'm hoping that we can have a bit of fun with this one as well, even if maybe some of the rules have been bent to make programming it a bit easier. Okay. So we've got 2 enemies, and now what I would like to do is have a crystal, and I think this is sprite 32. I did make some sprites, and I've forgotten the layout of them. Let's get up tools, Sprite editor. Here's Yquest editor, and if we go to load recent Yquest, reload. Okay, I was wondering what those were, but I just drew some scribbles just to pad out the file. So, okay, I was wrong. So that's the crystal. We haven't drawn the mine yet. We'll have to deal with that soon. So that's going to be our collectible object. So that's the thing that we want. So I was wrong. So that's going to be an offset of 24. 24. It's 16 bytes per 8 line sprite because there's 2 bytes per line. I'm just doing. I could have a byte that defines sprite number and then calculate it in real time. I may decide to do that later on, but for now I'm not doing that. Okay, I'm defining this as enemies. It should really be objects because the crystal isn't an enemy. It doesn't matter as such, but it's a bit misleading. Okay. Have I got my maths wrong? I've got my maths wrong. It's 32, isn't it? Please excuse me. Programming at 5 AM does have its negatives there. Okay, so there we go. So the crystal is moving. The crystal isn't supposed to move. That's because the crystal is using the same logic engine as the enemies, which is of course wrong. So player program is this one. So we'll change this to 0. If we run again, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? A bit disappointing. Because the acceleration needs to be set to 0. The enemies, their acceleration is being recalculated every frame, but the 0 objects are not acceleration programmed, so that they either the players are at a 0 object, and that's the acceleration is manually overridden by the controller here. Now, you notice I died when I tried to collect the crystal there. So that's not what we want. So we'll have to look at that next, and I'm going to use this last byte for program. It's not program. What should we call this? Collision. So a 0 collision is going to be that the object potentially hurts the player, and a 1 collision is going to be that the object is a collectible. So where is our collision detection? I need to eventually. I'll probably split this up into multiple ASM files. It's difficult to know what to do for the best on that, because I think some people certainly like it, and I totally understand that. But also, I think some people will find it harder because if you're trying to port the program or trying to make sense of it, if it's split out into lots of files, it can be a little bit tricky. Object collision. Okay, here it is. Okay, so this is the code that handles the collision with the player. So in the case of program 0, this is an object that kills the player. So what we'll do in this case is what we've already done. So we're loading in A from the collision program. We'll do an OR A. Putting 6502 commands in there, if you saw that. That's not right. It's not right at all. Is that player hurt label actually used anywhere else? No, it's not. Okay, well that's okay. I'm going to just make, okay, so this is, so if the player gets the crystal, I'm going to move the crystal to a different position on the screen. Now this is going to happen with some conditions. You see, I'm thinking the game's going to work a bit like Operation Wolf. In the original, there was 50 crystals on the screen and you had to collect all 50 to proceed to the next level. I think that that's going to be a little bit difficult on this version of the game because I'm not going to use the scrolling, at least initially. So there won't be as big a play area, and also I don't want to have too many objects on the screen because I'm not going to be using the most efficient graphics routines on the planet to do this. So I'm thinking rather than have 50 crystals on the screen, do like Lemmings 3, have 10 on the screen, and then when the player collects one, respawn it in a new random position, and keep doing that until they've got like 40, and then once they're down to the last 10, if there's 10 on the screen, don't respawn the crystal, so that they have to collect all the crystals on the screen, but there can be more crystals that will appear later while they're collecting those first ones. So that's my plan. I'm thinking that's going to be that's going to give us more flexibility with regards to we can have as many objects on the screen as we want, but we can also have more objects required to be collected for the level to be completed than we can show. I think that's going to be quite a good way of doing things, and the first thing we're going to do to accommodate that is to re-randomize the position of the crystal when the player collects it. Now at some point we'll need to have some kind of check to see how many crystals are remaining, and if the level's over we won't re-randomize. We'll just disable the object, I guess. I'm playing really badly here. Okay, maybe I need to rethink the controls of this a bit. I'm having real trouble here. Ah, it killed me. Okay, I've done something wrong then. Okay, well, I'm still falling into the player hurt routine there, so that's a mistake. But it didn't randomize that object position, did it? Why didn't it do that? Okay, let's have a look at my code. Maybe I forgot to change the definition of the crystal routine. No, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, it looks right. is there something that's resetting the object position? No, there isn't. Let's just try one more time. I've changed the code now. I forgot to reset and the code has re-randomized itself. No, it killed me. It killed me. That's not right. Okay. Well, I think we'll take advantage of our debugger here. And we will add that there. And we'll see what we're actually getting back as the collision program, because that should come back as a 1. I think it's F7 for a single step. It's coming back as a 0. If I set my collision program offset to the... Oh, I've set my... Stupid. There we go. That's why. This is the disadvantage of programming at 5 AM. Code will be produced. It may not be very good. Okay. Well, I'm sure it's going to work now. I'll take off that breakpoint. There we go. So it moved to a different position. We need to properly erase the original though. That's I need to erase that. So just cancel. So used to using. I'm used to using Notepad++, so I'm used to closing my emulators once they've run, but in this case the emulator and the assembler are the same thing. Now the only thing is, the reason I do it is it's faster like this. If I use Notepad++, the emulator startup adds quite a bit of time. So if you're doing dozens and dozens of compilations, this is the faster way, unfortunately. Ironically speaking, if you're using Win8, CPC is the fastest system to work on. If you're not, then I think the Sega Master System is, because you've got no boot up time. So it's choose your weapon wisely kind of thing. You know, as I say, if you're working with just anything, if you just want any system to work on and you don't want to use Win8, then yeah, as I say, I think the Master System is one of the faster ones. We need to clear that breakpoint, don't we? Can't complain too much about the breakpoints though, they are handy. So now we've got 3 crystals on the screen, and this, you can see them flickering slightly. I mean, maybe we need to do some better code and remove the, well, we could program it so that we don't redraw them if they don't move or something, to save some CPU power for the drawing routines and also save the flickering. We'll worry about things like that later on though. We're not going to worry about that right now. Okay, so we need to remove the old sprite here. Blank player is an incorrect description. I believe this routine is should be called blank object. So there we go. Although it's appearing off the screen there, we'll fix that, because that's probably corrupting some of our system memory. It's probably writing to the range out. It's probably writing to the 0 area because, as I say, that's off the bottom of the screen. If you do that on the Spectrum, you'll probably get a crash because, but it depends how your screen and things are set up. But within Chibi Akima's, I had the stack just above the screen area. So if you wrote outside of the screen area, you would corrupt the stack, and that would invariably cause a nasty crash. So it was a bad thing in the sense that, yes, Quasar, the CPC can do a lot of things with the screen memory. I've got a tutorial on the CRTC chip and what you can do with it. And you can change the size of the screen. You can change the screen memory position. You can change it by an entire bank within the main 64K. So you can have it at C000, the default, 8000 or 4000. I was using 8000, which is where the stack and the system variables are by default. But the 4 to 8000 range is the only area that can be bank switched with the upgraded memory. So I didn't want to use that because I wanted to bank switch in extra sprites and things. But you can also change the size of the screen. The screen's 320 by 200 by default, but you can change it to 256 by 192 and have it work like a Spectrum size screen. And you can do hardware vertical scrolling and things by changing the offset, vary it by a few bytes. So there's a lot of clever things you can do with the old CPC screen. I mean, it was hated for its lack of horizontal hardware scrolling. But with things like the Batman group, they're very clever stuff like the Pinball Dreams with the very, very smooth scrolling, and the Vespertino, they're exploiting the hardware CRTC chip and making it do things with regards to remapping memory areas and also, changing screen modes mid-screen and things. And that's how they're doing their very smooth scrolling and how they're doing their strange animation in Vespertino, where the screen is warping and twisting as the level progresses. So it's hard to, if you use it in a dumb way, it's not that good. Like, it can't do scrolling like some systems can. But if you use it in a very, very smart way, which is what the very good coders these days are doing, it can be very, very powerful, which is why you're seeing all these crazy games come out these days that no one could do before. Because you've got very good programmers with very good documentation and very good tools, and the result is the Vespertino types and the other stuff like say the Pinball Dreams, where you've got all these clever tricks and overscan and, as I say, vertical per pixel 60 FPS hardware scrolling. But so it's tough to do. It's not something I can take on really. But yeah, very, very impressive stuff. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, I need to change the ranged random. So we're currently using C8, which is 200. You can see decimal 200 here. So I want to just use C0. I think that'll do us. And that is 192, which on the 200 pixel tall screen will solve that problem. Although I want to change this to 4F as well, don't I? Because I don't want to have 4E. I think I want that to be 4E, because I don't want an object off the right hand side of the screen either. Now it wouldn't be so bad because it wouldn't crash, but it's not right. So we want to do things right. At some point we also need to clear that screen, don't we? Unless we want to attack the basic display, which maybe we do. Basic probably deserves the punishment. Okay, so we've got a live counter. You can see at the top of the screen here, we've got lives up there. You can see that lives. So if we hit one of these wibbly things that's terrorizing the screen, our lives went down to 1. So what we want to do now is have a crystal count, and we want to count down the number of crystals we've got. So let's how are we going to do this? We want to use binary coded decimal, don't we? I can't remember how to do it. It's been too long. Let's have a look at let's steal some code from Grime. Steal code. I don't like stealing other people's code, but I have absolutely no qualms about stealing my own. I will steal my own code, thank you very much. If I can't steal my own code, then whose code can I steal? That's not good. I've just had a notification that the SSD has connected. And that's my main hard drive. So, slightly worried there. My USB problems, maybe I've not seen their last days. Anyway, we'll carry on. I'm not seeing any crashing here. I'll just copy my code into a notepad just in case things get weird here. And we'll store onto my new no, they're probably not switched on. I have actually got a couple of cameras connected. I'm not using them today, but OBS is set to switch them off if they're not on screen, so they wouldn't be doing anything. Yeah, I don't know why I keep having these USB problems, apart from the fact that I'm driving 3 monitors, of course, which is probably not great for signal quality. But anyway. So let's find the BCD code. I think, yeah, that's what we need. So this is some code I wrote before. It's basically just a simple binary coded decimal sort of driver, so to speak. Now, I think this is using packed. I think we use packed BCD on the Z80, which means that we stored 2 digits per byte. Now, in the case of this, well, I guess we want to have quite a bit of expandability. So let's do db. Now this is backwards, by the way. So the first byte is the last digit, I think. I think that's right. We'll find out in a moment, won't we? So I'm just going to show the crystal information on the right hand side. We're having the lives on the left. I'm not sure. Might be better to do it the other way, but we'll do it this way for starters. File not found. Yeah, the path's different. Okay, that's possibly the problem of importing code. So the ZDJNZ is for the support of the Game Boy. So let's just have a look at. So we need to import the support for the Game Boy CPU, which where is it? Which is that? Yeah, we're opening a can of worms with this, but it's a can of worms. If we're going to port to the Game Boy, it's a can of worms we had to open at some point. So We need to include that probably as well. There were some slight differences between Vassum and WinApe, and those will, like the fact that include and is used on Vassum and read is used on WinApe. That's one of the differences. So we can affix a few with macros and things. So that's what we're doing there. And then also we need to have a build CPC definition. Otherwise, I think we're going to have trouble. File not found again because my path is different. This is why I'm using a virtual Z drive. Well, hang on a minute, I was so distracted by the scrolling, I didn't look at what it was actually showing. Okay, so I'm showing too many digits there, so we'll show 2 digits. Okay, well we're showing the right what I expected to see there. Okay, so I think I've got my X and Y coordinates mixed up here. I think it's X first and then Y in the HL pair then. Forgetting how it worked. Okay, so I need to subtract 4 from that. So, let's get our calculator up. Hexadecimal 20 minus 4, is that 1C? Thinking it was 1D, but my hexadecimal maths is not good. There we go. So now we've got a crystal count on the screen. That looks quite nice. And then what we'll need to do is, if the player hits the crystal, we need to decrease that crystal count. I think we need to do that. Now the only problem with BCD is subtracting. It's a pain. So what we need to do is we need to do a BCD. I mean, arguably it would be easier to just use hexadecimal. That is a powerful argument. I'm struggling to think of a reason not to. Yeah, we'll keep the BCD code in for the score, but I think we're going to be better off using some decimal showing code. The decimal showing code is slower, but I think that this is going to make everything else more difficult otherwise. So I think we need to have this as a decimal rather than BCD. I do have some decimal showing code somewhere. I can't remember where it is. There it is, show decimal. Multi-platform show decimal. So this will handle the conversion of a byte into 3 digits. It's a little bit long. Yeah, it looks like it'll port okay. I think it only relies on print char. It's a bit misleading with all of these jumps around the place, but the functionality it uses is just print char, I believe. Just keep remembering to save on WinApe, because WinApe doesn't save when we compile. Don't make that mistake. And then read. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but when I double click there, it opened a second tab. It gets confused. It will open its own tab, and then it will get confused if you change one and not the other. So if that happens, make sure you close the other one. Okay, so it wants a print space routine, which just loads the character space and does a print char. So we can make one of those to keep it happy. Not core, we just need a jump, don't we? Let's make it into lowercase. There we go. Yeah, I've not changed to the show decimal yet. I think, as I say, I think if you're doing a value below 255, the show decimal routine is better. But I think if you're doing a value above 255 and certainly one above 16-bit, you need to use binary coded decimal. But it makes your addition and your subtraction and your comparisons all a little bit tricky. You can do them. The code that I've got here can do compares and adds and subtractions, so you can do it. It just makes it more tricky. And as I say, I think in this case, I'm not imagining a level having more than 255 crystals. You'd be there all day. So I'm thinking of numbers around 50 and 70 at the tops. So as I say, I think using the BCD routine is excessive in this case, and I think it's just going to make this program just a little bit of a pain for the programmer. For the viewers who are watching the tutorial series, as I say, that's what the intention of this is, that it becomes a tutorial. So, okay, so the player's got the crystal here, and now what we want to do is we want to load in A from the crystal count, decrease A, and load the crystal count back. And then, if A is less, compare to on-screen crystals. Now I'm just going to open a notepad. I tend to use notepads for a little bit for making notes, so I just need to remember that because I've not defined that yet. I'm going to define that in a moment. And if it's so, as I said before, we're going to have a level where maybe there's 50 crystals to win the level, but only 10 are shown on screen at once. So on-screen crystals would be set to 10. Now, if the remaining crystals are lower than the on-screen crystals, then we need to take the crystal away. But otherwise, we just need to give it a new position. Why is space being detected as question mark there? I just noticed my key presses. The font I'm using, the Windows 10 machine doesn't have the font I'm using, obviously. I'll have to have a look at that. I didn't realise that. Okay. I didn't think the mini laptop had a problem. It must be a Japanese font. I've not got Japanese fonts installed on this machine. That'll be what it is. I'll have to look into that. Okay. So we'll have to sort that out. Okay. So we've got our routine here we need a routine to clear the crystal. how are we going to kill off an object? Let's have a look at what we've got here. What we'll do, what I think we'll do is we'll use the sprite number. Hang on a minute. I'm sorry. I'll be back in just a moment. Sorry about that. I'm still having problems with the USB. My virtual machine here keeps popping up warnings saying USB devices are connected, and I've not connected any. So that implies to me that they're malfunctioning and that the system is redetecting them. So I've just turned 2 of them off with my USB hub to try and reduce the problems. So it's a bit surprising. I wasn't expecting those kind of problems anymore because I've got AS Media 3. I thought I'd just unplugged that. Sorry, a bit very frustrating here. I don't know why this would be happening now. I've got devices plugged straight onto the system rather than using hubs. I've got those sort of for ring things on all of the cables. I don't know. Anyway, it is what it is. We'll have to figure it out at a later date. So I need to work out. So as I say, what I was planning to do is use the sprite address, and if the sprite address is 0, then there's nothing to show. So that's what I'm thinking of doing here. So if we have a look at our code here. So let's take this and we will put this here, and we'll just load A here, and then we'll OR D, we'll OR that, and then we'll just return if 0, because if the sprite address is 0, then we're not going to show anything. And we'll do the same on the blank player routine as well. Yeah, okay. Now the only thing is I need to also do it on the collision routine. I mean, maybe it would be better to use a program, a collision program or something. Yeah, maybe we'll do that instead. That's going to be better. To save some space here. So we'll define collision program 255 as being an object that we don't draw. I think that's going to be better. Yeah, so we'll load this in here. Now there's a trick. If you want to compare to 255, if you load it in and do it in K and then do ret Z, because if it's 255 and you add 1, it goes to 0, but in K is just a 1-byte command, whereas CP255 is a 2-byte command. So we will just save a byte there. So that's going to disable that routine if that's set to 2, if the object's collision program is set to 255. But we need to do it here and here as well. Okay, so that's going to give us a way of disabling the object. Okay, and so here we just need to do LD with A, and we need to load A with 255. And I've not defined my on-screen crystals. I was so distracted by all the problems with my USB, my ongoing problems with the USB, shall we say, that I forgot to create the on-screen crystal count, and the on-screen crystals is 3. Code expected. What code were you expecting then? Equal, yeah, equals. Okay. So if I collect one of these crystals, if I try and collect one of these crystals, there we go. Now if I connect one more, it should not respawn. There we go. 2, 1, 0. Now, at this point, what should happen is that the level should reset and a new level should start with different enemies. That's the plan. Okay, so that's what we need to do next, I think. We need to, well, we need to clear that screen as well, don't we? We really, I think it's time to clear that screen. Okay. Just thinking about what we want to do here. I also want to set the palette. The palette isn't. I'm not going to use this palette. So we'll load in our palette routine here. I was expecting trouble. Some of these routines aren't sort of converted for the WinApe, because I tend to use Vasm these days. But I say if I'm going to be doing it on a live stream like this, I need to minimize the amount of problems I have. I don't want to be sitting here staring at the code wondering why it doesn't work for half an hour. So as I say, WinApe is faster and easier to debug, so that's why I'm using that today. And I'm just going to take this code here. It looks a bit clunky, but it works. So this is going to set the palette on all. This will set palette on all systems. So we will put that all the way up here. So that's our set palette routine. And we also want the actual palette, which is going to be lurking around down here somewhere. Here it is. So we're defining 16 colors on these systems because we always use the top color for our font with my tutorial code. So, although that said, this is using firmware fonts, I think, at the moment. But it won't eventually. We'll use the Chibi Akima's font, or maybe the Chibi Aliens font. Maybe we'll use that instead. It's, the Chibi Aliens font's not quite as easy to read, but it's quite a nice font all the same. what happened there is the firmware overrode my palette. Okay, let's have a look at my code here. Okay, let's do a DI here. Yeah, okay. I think you've got me beat, do you, firmware? You think you're going to win this argument? Now the problem is that I'm using the firmware for the joystick reading routines. I didn't have easy to use joystick routines before, and I still don't because they're on the other machine. Okay, that's just a slight flaw. Okay, well we'll have to do that later then. We'll leave that for today. The firmware is the firmware going to beat me? Is that what we're reduced to then? Maybe we are. Yeah, okay. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take these out. And I'm going to use the V2 functions instead. Am I? Am I going to do this? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Because it would work, but I want this to be a simple tutorial. And that's going to make it complicated. It's going to make it very complicated. Okay. Let's think of an alternate way of doing this then. Let's have a look at my palette routine. It might have support for firmware palettes in it. Let's have a look at how I did things. I can't remember how I coded this. No, this is directly to our outing to hardware, isn't it? Okay. Well, that's a pain. I need to have a think, and I need to decide how I want to do this, because I've got two options here. I either switch to using my own code and stop using the firmware, but that's going to make the tutorial more complicated, or I keep using the firmware, which isn't my personal preference, but that will keep the tutorial simple. So I need to decide. I need to decide what my ethos is going to be with this tutorial series. So for now, we'll leave the palettes alone. I'll address that next time. We'll decide what our rules are going to be for that. I guess I'll probably use the firmware. I don't like using the firmware, but it keeps the code simple. Yeah, and we'll also take that BCD routine off as well, I think. Yeah. So I'm still thinking. Yeah, I think we need to do the firmware thing. Unfortunately, I think we need to use the firmware for the viewers. The viewers need simple code, and that's going to make it simpler. Okay. So let's have a look and see what we've got here. BDEB. Okay, we need to get some documentation on screen. So let's have a look what documentation we can find. Creative to backup. Documentation. So I've got this documentation here, and if we go to this Z80 documentation and CPC 464 firmware, That would do it, but I think that's going to be a bit of a pain to work with. Do we have a better one? Firmware. Let's have a look at this. Yeah, this is it. Did I say BD? What did I say? Mode clear, BDEB. BDEB. Screen mode clear, fills the entire screen, no entry conditions, so we don't need to set any registers. So if we just run that at the start, that will clear our screen. Okay, you just need to double check. I mean, if you're relying on registers not changing, then you need to check that as well. But at the very least, you need to just check. You just need to check that if you're relying, if that it doesn't need like the accumulator setting. It doesn't need the accumulator setting to the screen mode or something. BDEB. Okay, and if we just do a call. Why isn't that working, I wonder? Okay. So I think what would be the problem there? BDEB. Hey? Well, maybe this is a later version of the firmware. Well, I don't know. Well, actually, no. This isn't. This is. No, I don't think it can be. This is a CPC 6128. Okay. Well, let's. I'm not quite sure what to make of that. I think maybe that. Okay, let's this one. We'll try this one instead. I think this will work instead. I don't know what that other one was. I don't know if it's one that's only set up in some circumstances. Like it's sort of. It described it as a redirect, an indirection. I don't know quite what the deal with that is, but anyway, it didn't work. So we'll use BC14 instead. So we've got our screen clearing now. There's kind of a trail being left. Why is the player moving when I'm not moving it? Strange. I've obviously put some extra. I've obviously put some junk code in somewhere. Okay, well, it's nothing to do with that, so we'll have to figure that out separately. Well, we'll take that out because we're not going to use that, and I'm not going to use the BCD either. Let's at least get rid of the code that could be causing it. So what must be happening is there must be something wrong with my variables. Okay, why would... I don't understand what's going on there. Why would the player be being controlled by the computer now? Let's just have a look at things and try and work that out. So we've got the object array here, and we've got the player object here, the player program. Why is the player being controlled like a computer? Hang on a minute, it's just... ...20 minutes before the end of today's stream, so let's try and figure this out before the end of the stream. Joystick's working okay, so it's not that. So the program has to be 0. So for some reason the player's program is not 0, and it should be. So it's 0, okay, so that's fine. So I'm just testing the player program, because at some point this is getting switched so that it's no longer 0. That must be why the player is moving around as if it's a computer controlled player, I think. Okay. This is weird. Why has this suddenly started happening? And it worked fine before, and now it's broken. It's very strange. Okay, well, so we're loading in there from the collision program, and we're returning if it's 0. No, returning if it's 255, but that shouldn't affect the player because the player isn't 255. You are. Okay. It looks like that's okay. I don't. So the player program doesn't look like it's getting changed, but the program's malfunctioning anyway. Okay, just as a test, I'm going to do a jump, a hard jump to program OK here. I mean, jump out of range. Well, that was bound to happen sooner or later anyway. Right, that's very, very odd. So this code is getting executed even if we don't ask it to. That makes very, very little sense. Okay, hang on a minute. I think we've got an issue here where well, I don't know what's going on. So this is the code that moves our player around. So if I take this out, compile again, it should be impossible for the objects to change direction. And yet we are. Okay, so that's slightly surprising, isn't it? Okay, so what is happening is this is a joystick malfunction. Oh, when did I rend? Why did I rend that out? Why is that remmed out? That's the problem. I don't remember doing that. When did I do that? I must have remmed it out. I must have remmed out the call to the joystick routine, thinking it was the routine for the clear screen. Must have been what happened. It just happened that it made it look like the random number generation routine. There we go. So it just happened to look like the random number generation routine. So that's at least we cleared it up. Okay, so that was a bit embarrassing. I apologise for that. These things happen, unfortunately. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to look through this and I'm going to find the colours set border BC38. So let's use that first. Let's just double check those details there. BC38. Set the border. Again, if two values are supplied, the border will flash. Well, we don't want that. So BC. So we're going to do a call all the way at the top here to BC. And we need to load BC, comma, and we want a very dark border. So I'm going to try 4-4. So we want 4-4 twice because we want it not to flash. Okay, not hardware numbers. I'm using hardware numbers. We obviously don't want to. So 0101, I guess we want. Which is the default blue. Okay, that's quite dull. Well, that's the darkest colour there is. So we'll go with that. Let's have a look at the other options then. So Skirset Ink BC32 here. Let's give Skirset Ink some activity. Sets the colour of a pen. If two values are supplied, then the colour will flash. So entry contains the pen number. I assume that means the accumulator. Okay, so I'll just do this very simply like this for now. We'll probably put a loop in later. So magenta number. Well, let's go for something. No. 58. Let's try 58. I'm going to stick to my normal colours that I use. not 58, sorry, number 4. Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, we'll put in our loop then. We better put our loop in. It will be a, comma 0, X or A. That's quicker. Saves a byte. And we've got 10 minutes to code this up. We can probably manage that. And we need to be very careful with our rules here, because I'm going to use other registers and I'm going to assume they're not going to get changed, which might be wrong. So setting, everything's corrupt except IX and IY. So okay, so we need to push, if we need it, we need to push it. We'll pop it back there, and we'll push HL, and we'll pop HL, Inc A, Dec A. Let's start, well, I'm just trying to work out which is the better one. Dec A is, no, I need to run for 0, so we'll sorry for the inconsistency there. CP with 4 and GRZ, comma palette again. So we're using AF as our our count for the loop, and also as our palette number. A equals pal num, BC equals colors. So we'll do a load of B from HL and a C from HL, because we want them both to be the same, and then we'll do an inc of HL, and here we need to do LD HL, comma palette, and that will be what we need. And if I just go to the bottom here and define our palette and do DB, and we need background color, and then we need first color, which we're going to try as 4, and then we need our other colors. I'm going to use number 14 and then number 26. So that's basically going to be the palette that I used at some parts of Chibi Akuma's. Well, that's worked well, hasn't it? No, colours. Okay, let's double check. I've clearly done very, very stupid things there, and I'm sure we'll very quickly spot what they are. Okay, yeah, that in KHL needs to be there. There we go. Okay. Let's have a think. I'm not sure those are the best colours for this game. Now the original game, let's go for a magenta of some kind. We've got purple and we've got magenta, so we've got 7. Let's try 7. No, I don't like that. Let's try number 3, red. I'm looking for a colour set that feels like it's got a lot of variety. Within the limits of the CPC. I mean, that feels too dark to me. I mean, we could go for a cyan maybe. 10. And that's going to give a very blue palette. That's I don't really want the whole palette to be the same. Yeah, okay. I mean, that's not. That's a good trade-off between a dark colour and a colour you can't see, but it leaves the palette lacking in variety. Let's try crossing that with orange, number 15. Let's see how that works. Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, it works. Well, it works in the sense that it's got a variety of brightnesses, but I don't like it. I think it's ugly. Trying to figure out what our best option is here. So we'll stick with that cyan then. I think we'll go for the brighter cyan, maybe. And maybe we'll go for... Let's just try number 5 again. Yeah, if only we had that CPC Plus palette, eh? Okay, we're going to go with that. That purple is the better one. So I think I do like the purple. It gives a good those are too similar. Just looking again, trying to see if there's another alternative other than that pastel blue. Maybe we do need to. Let's just try it one more time. Difficult to decide on the colours because we're going to have to draw our sprites around the colour palette. Those two are very similar. So I either need to make the cyan brighter. I'm just looking at the alternatives. I mean, the alternative would be 17, I guess. Let's try that. Nothing to lose. That was supposed to be a sea green. $19. Now it must be a hardware number. It doesn't look like one. So let's put in the 19 here and compile that. And let's see if that works a little bit better. Okay, I think that's what I'm going to go with for now. It feels like it's got a bit more variety than the other color palette. The darkest color is nice and bright. The mid color, the sea green, is sufficiently different to the white and to the darker color. I think it's possibly not going to mix as well, but we'll stick with that for now. I might change my mind later and go back to cyan of some kind, but for now I'm going to stick with that, and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it won't make too much difference, you know, if I decide to change my mind. But things like, if I decide these little wiggly enemies are supposed to be some kind of alien, then maybe we want them to be some kind of green, or at least something quite bright. So I do need to have some kind of consistency. But that will be what I'm going to work with for now. And I'm going to, much to my disdain, I am going to use the firmware to do the palette, because I think it's going to be easier for the tutorial, even if it's not my personal preference. At this point, we're going to call it a day for today's stream. So let's go over to the thanks for watching screen. If you enjoyed this, then please join in next week. We'll be continuing this program. We'll be programming this every week. So, if you found this amusing, then come along, check in for that. The game is progressing to something that looks like it might end up being relatively playable, which is nice. So, hopefully there will be a proper series based on it later on. If you want to get more content, then I have a stream tomorrow at the opposite side of the day. That's early evening for me. If it's yes, my alarm's going off there. It's probably morning for you if this is evening. But anyway, as I say, please check YouTube for the time in your time zone on that. If you want to catch some more content, that'll be just gaming though. Whatever you do, I hope you have a great afternoon, evening, or morning, depending on your time zone. Thanks for watching today. I hope it's been interesting for you. It's been very kind of you to join me. Take care now. Thanks for watching and goodbye.